If you have someone you know, or maybe yourself debating if you're a candidate for diabetes, I'll give you a little brief rundown. Diabetes, there's two. So first we have the type 1 diabetics, and for some reason they can't produce any insulin whatsoever. They have to take a shot of insulin, or they have this little pump that looks like a little pager, and every time they eat, they have to give themselves a little shot of insulin. Type 2 diabetics, there's different things that can happen. For example, you make insulin, but you don't make enough, or the insulin that you make isn't designed correctly, so it's kind of like going to your home and opening up your front door with your back door key. It's not really going to work really well. Or the people get so fat that these receptors are plugged with fat. So even though they can make insulin, they can't make it in there. So over the years and years of eating carbs and sugar, what happens is your blood is always thick all the time. And the way that cells get blood to them is kind of like a big hose, like an artery, and they get smaller and smaller and smaller, and it travels farther away from the heart, and they become what is called capillaries. And capillaries come from the Latin word hair. So boom, boom, hair, all right? So these little hair-like structures get brittle, and they end up breaking due to high sugar levels, so blood doesn't reach your legs. And that's why if type 2 diabetics don't take care of themselves, they can have their leg amputated. So if your sugar levels are way too high, what happens is that your kidneys will have to filter all that sugar, so they tend to have kidney damage. So the only part of the body that doesn't have these little receptors is our eyes. So our eyes don't have those receptors. So again, a lifestyle with high sugar, that sugar starts flooding your eyes and eventually damages them. So we know if you don't control your sugar levels, you can risk potentially ending up blind, no kidneys, and no legs. Not the coolest way to live life. So parents, don't reward your kids with fast food and sugar-laced foods and desserts. There's always better alternatives, because at that vulnerable age, you're just linking your child again with love and affection. So find healthier foods, like, different rewards, like buying a new outfit, a new baseball glove, a new skateboard, even a new cool backpack for school again, okay? So a quick recap. So you eat carbohydrates, your sugar levels drop, the body secretes insulin, stores everything in the form of a glycogen, your pulls water in, blood sugars drop. The whole idea is to keep your sugar levels between 80 and 120, okay? So if we want to control our glucose levels or blood sugar, what's the food that we have to control? Proteins, fats, or carbohydrates? Carbohydrates, okay? So, well, there's another one. Where'd my fat go? But it's called trans fats. But there's a different kind of fat. So studies show that when you consume fried foods, when you fry a fat at really high temperatures, it changes the molecular structure of the fat, and that too can also raise your sugar levels. So fried foods, I recommend to really be careful of, not just because of the high fat caloric and high fat amounts, but because it will raise your blood sugar levels. So just be conscious about this. So trans fat, carbs. And if you're using insulin, 1 unit usually neutralizes or puts away 15 grams of carbohydrates. If you're ever known a type 1 diabetic, some may use those glucose tablets, and how many grams of sugar do you think they are? 15. So in case your sugar levels drop, they take glucose tablets, wait a few minutes and see if it goes up, and then they take it again, and so on until it gets normal. So even though carbohydrates are really important and that's what controls your sugar levels, we also know to a certain extent there's calories in and calories out. But let's say I need 2,500 calories a day just to maintain my weight, energy, and strength. If I had 2,500 calories a day from Crisco, or 2,500 from Pop-Tarts, or 2,500 from chicken, or from oatmeal, don't you think you'll get different results? Yeah, so it's not so much calories in, calories out, it's what are those calories really comprised of. I mean, yeah, I do take calories into account, but also where do they come from is really what's important. Now remember, what determines how long food stays in your stomach or gastric emptying time is how long it takes it for it to become a liquid and leave your stomach. So if we were to look at fruit juice will leave your stomach right away, and it causes your blood sugars to skyrocket, right? And it goes so far up in your body, ends up turning into something called triglycerides. And triglycerides is just another way of saying fat floating in your blood. And we know that if your triglycerides are greater than 100, that doubles your chances of a heart attack. And remember, insulin, our friend, well, one of the problems with fruit juice is fruit has this natural sugar called fructose, and fructose tends to raise your sugar levels, but it does not cause an insulin secretion. So what that means is that when fructose hangs around in your blood, it ends up binding to hemoglobin. And when you want to go see how you want to see your sugar levels, how good your sugar levels are, if you had a blood glucose meter right now, that machine will poke your finger and it'll tell you what your blood sugar levels are right now. So when diabetic patients that aren't really being careful, they control it for a day before they go see their doctor and say, hey, see how good I am? It's between 120 and 80 or 90. Well, the doctor or dietitian will take their blood and measure something called hemoglobin A1C, and it tells the doctor that the red blood cell has about a 90 to 120 day lifespan. So since all this excess sugar has bound to their blood cells in the form of hemoglobin, when they measure hemoglobin A1C, the doctor will know how good they've been the past 90 to 100 days. So hemoglobin A1C is one of the tools that doctors can use to diagnose whether to see if you have type 2 diabetes. And fructose, or fruit sugar, is the leading cause of diabetes in children. So remember how you had type 1 and type 2? Well, in type 1 diabetics where you don't make any insulin, and used to be called juvenile diabetes, and that usually meant that you got a virus or something happened that attacked your pancreas, which caused you to stop making insulin. So now that you have to take insulin shots, now it would take you a lifetime to get so fat that you would plug your receptors with fat and trash your pancreas, so you'll be an adult by then. So what's called type 2 diabetes or adult onset diabetes, but it's changed. Now we have these 8-year-old kids getting so fat too that they have type 2 diabetes, so they're not adults, so we can't call them adult diabetes anymore. And the reason? The leading cause for children's diabetes is because of fruit juice. So parents, when you thought fruit juice is good for your kids, you should rethink this again and reconsider. Fruit juice and the other drinks that have high fructose corn syrup, and mostly fruity drinks have high fructose corn syrup, it may even say they're natural, it doesn't mean it's healthy. So please, no fruit juices.